keyword video. This the last video interview of our primary election season as we talk with former clerk of courts and Republican candidate for that job yet again, Scott Ellis. Scott, thanks for taking the extra time.
Oh, no problem at all, Bill.
Let's talk about the issues in this office. You held the office for 10 years. You left midterm. Mitch Needleman got elected, and there were changes. Talk about the differences in style, what the office is doing now, and what you would do if back in there.
Yes, there have been major changes. As you know, I put a lot of hours in, very much hands-on. When I say hands-on the office, I wasn't hands-on doing everybody's work for them, but hands-on knowing what was going on in the office, knowing the individuals that worked there, and how things were working. What you have now is you have insulated the clerk with an additional layer of management who perceives himself more as an administrator, basically a far-off administrator, versus, to me, a leadership position. I can obviously, if you're the employee, Bill, I can make you work. I can beat you with a stick and make you work. But if I really want quality work from you, I have to have you respect me. I want you to be loyal to me. I want you to do the job. On the flip side, if I'm working for you and I really like you, I respect you, I don't want to let you down. There's no better quality control than when I'm doing my job, I don't want to let you down when I do that work. That's all been lost. And you've set people up almost like cogs in a machine, but they're not even getting oiled. They're just getting beat on daily. And to me, I want to go back into that model where you have leadership, you have respect, you have loyalty. People do their best because it's expected. They don't want to let their coworkers down. They don't want to let you down. Not because they feel if they don't get the job done, someone comes by and beats them with a stick.
Let's talk about that layer of management that he added. How's that management staff compare with the management staff you had when you were there before, or how it would be if you were there again?
He has created an upper management staff. It's basically a top tier, whereas before I had one chief deputy. The chief deputy's job was take over if I got killed. If I'm killed or knocked out, that's their job. And I used to tell that to him. If your job is, if I'm walking across the street to go home to the parking lot and I get flattened by a truck, you've got it the next day. Mm-hmm. That's your job. I don't need you in the chain of command. It's a pointless thing to have a one-on-one link. Your job is to know what everything else is going on. You take it over. We now have 3 chief deputies. We've got a training guy in from the Cape that knows nothing about Space Center. We've got an inspector general that I don't know what they do. We added 2 administrative assistants. Pretty much the job I did when I left, I was replaced by 5 people. I left as clerk. I was replaced by a new clerk, 2 more chief deputies, and 2 administrative assistants. All right? And I've gotten a little bit of grief because I actually did my own email. Well, you know, Bill, when you send an email to Scott Ellis, clerk of the court, you expect an answer from me. Mm-hmm. Now, I may not give you the details that you need, but I say, thank you, Mr. Mick. Let us check on that, please. I've responded to you. You know we've received it. And I copy, let's say, recording because you're looking for something from recording. Mm-hmm. Or you're looking for something from warrants. That's my job. You shouldn't get 2 or 3 days later from, Jane Smith on behalf of Scott Ellis. Scott Ellis needs to do it because if I'm in touch with the public, I have a feel for what's going on out there as well. I'm not so insulated off in a control room. I don't know how the office runs. I don't know what the public is doing.
So, given the opportunity, you'll reduce the admin staff.
Absolutely.
You'll bring back the outsourced staff that's available to be brought back.
And the admin staff must be reduced because it's the only way that you can afford to get the people back you need to do the work.
Are you saying the work's not being done now?
Absolutely, it's not being done. When you go into the service counters, particularly you go into Melbourne, you'll wait 30, 40 minutes to be waited on. I know I had to go in there and pay for my public records. The way we had it set up is the people had other jobs they would do. So I'm working the service counter, and perhaps 6 hours out of 8, I've got customers in front of me. When I don't have customers in front of me, I've got electronic work I can do. I can add traffic tickets. I can add cases. I've got work that I can do. The goal was that you're still always busy 8 hours a day. You just don't always wait on customers.
Right.
They're so slammed with customers now, it just never ends.
Let's go to the financial operation of the office. One of the big contentious things in this race, as far as I can tell, and one that concerns me, is $500,000 to BluWare. Either there was a contract in play or there wasn't, and according to what the clerk said to Florida Today, there was $500,000 in good faith money paid to BluWare to get them to sit down and negotiate. Give me your take on this and what's reasonable. Is it ever reasonable to pay $500,000 to somebody to sit down to talk to the clerk of court's office?
No, the deal was already done. And although the following night, the very next night, he said that no one had been selected to even begin negotiations of the 3 vendors who submitted, the fact is BluWare had been on board since February, March. They were being paid to work in the office. This whole thing
in what capacity?
They did an IT audit. For the IT audit, they would receive $100,000, and they got that payment April 6th. On May 3rd, they got an additional $150,000 for a supplement to the IT audit. $250,000 has now been spent on the audit. You cannot get an audit report. I've tried that. What they claim is now that they turned the results of the audit report over to FDLE for an investigation, and because law enforcement has the report, you're not allowed to see it as a public record.
Have you asked FDLE for it? To see if they have it?
FDLE will never comment on an ongoing investigation. And I don't blame them.
Right, absolutely.
I don't blame them.
Yeah, not at all.
But $250,000 has been spent on this, and the fact is there's nothing. All they do is shove money to this company and then just fill out invoices.
Okay, what about the $500,000, the $500,000? Give me your take.
That was the down payment on the contract. If you look at the way the contract was written, it called for $500,000 initial payment upon signing. That was the contract itself. That's what happened that day. They were there to meet on a contract May 23rd.
And that's the note on the electronic funds transfer?
Yes,
initial
absolutely.
Payment on
initial
signing?
Payment upon signing. And if you'll notice, when they came back on June 29th for the little Potemkin signing, they didn't do an additional $500,000 payment. It had already been made back on May 23rd. The June 29th contract is not the same as was before them on May 23rd. The whole intention of doing electronic fund transfers, which they did March, April, May, and June, was to hide that money and not have it show up on the accounting system till after the election. And the same with the contract. All this was to be kept low profile and not come up till after the election. Because I had copies of a couple of electronic fund transfers, I had copies of the paper, they were forced to begin to produce those documents. And when I sued them, they began uploading them up. So on July 9th, they uploaded electronic fund transfers from March, April, May, and June to BluWare, which had not been uploaded as invoices before.
Let's talk just a little bit. We didn't get to cover this on the air. Since both you and Mitch had been here previously, you guys ended up in court over public records
Absolutely.
request. Tell me about that. What
Absolutely,
occurred?
we did. I filed on, I believe, June 27th. When I filed, I had not received anything I asked for. Beginning July 9th, information was uploaded into the system, so I got quite a bit of it at that point. Mm-hmm. When we got to court, I can't remember the date, July 23rd, I believe, I was still looking for the contract and a couple other documents. The Florida Today portrayed this as the judge ruled I already had the documents. I had received them after the court case started, and it's a horrible precedent's been set in this county, which is you, Bill Mick, can withhold public documents from me all day long. I'm forced to go to court. I have to file suit. Once I file suit, you can dribble them out to me before the hearing date.
And it looks as though I've complied all along.
Right. It makes it look like I did a bogus suit because, you had them all. No, I did not. And you can go right to that clerk.
So you're saying
system.
documents weren't being produced until after the suit was filed?
Absolutely. They were not produced till after the suit was filed. Even after the suit was filed, I had to ask by name. Everything I've got, I've asked for by identifying the document. There are other documents I believe are there that they have not given me, but I've not been able to identify them, therefore I can't get them.
Is that an intentional act of withholding the
Absolutely.
information, or is it incompetence in the office?
No, it is absolutely intentional, because these are important documents to show why this money is being transferred to this company. And I'm going to tell you, we rarely did electronic fund transfers, because it was a real pain. If I do an electronic fund transfer, I still had to go back and do the journal entry in the financial system, and I had to upload it. Versus I could just go through the financial system to begin with, and it does the invoice and prints the check.
It'll cut the check.
Right, it cuts the check.
Right.
And typically you cut the check. You don't do an electronic fund transfer. And I will guarantee you, if you do electronic fund transfer March, April, May, June, you don't wait till July 9th to upload those to the system. If I do an electronic fund transfer to you, Bill Mick, at your company, that day or the next day, I upload the invoice. I have to do double entry work, but I do it, and I do it right then. I don't sandbag that for months. The only reason you sandbag it for months is you never intended to upload it until the election was over.
Got just a couple minutes left. During your term in office the last time, foreclosures started being a major issue for this office.
Big.
Are they still, and how are they being handled?
The last 2 years I was there, we did 9,000 to 10,000 a year. It was a flood. It has dropped down to about 3,000 per year, which is one of the reasons he's been able to limp along. It's now come back up to average about 6,000 a year. And I think you're starting to see that logjam break at the banks, because we were really cranking a lot of foreclosures when the robo-signing issue came up, which was probably the last few months I was in office. And when the robo-signing issue came up, I don't want to say it came to a grinding halt, but it slowed down dramatically. I think as the banks are moving past the robo-signing and they're basically paying their fines, they're being shaken down by the state, the feds, everybody else, you're going to see the foreclosures pick back up again. There's a very large shadow inventory sitting out there right now of empty houses in neighborhoods. They're not for rent. They're not for sale. Nobody's in them. They're just sitting there vacant. And they're waiting to go through that full foreclosure process and the banks or Freddie or Fannie, whoever's going to get it, to take title to the property.
What is the biggest issue right now in front of this clerk's office? What's the biggest thing you have to change if you get back in there?
The biggest thing you've got to change is to rebuild the morale and the operations. You've got to go through and try and determine what's left. It's almost like picking up a shattered company in the field. What do I have left? How can I reorganize this? And how do we get this thing back on track again? And it's going to take at least 2 to 3 years to rebuild your operations and to shake out all the errors that are now in the system. The thing with the clerk's office, the most important thing is be accurate. Because if I make an error in your court file, you may not be back in court for 8 or 9 months before you come back. Mm-hmm. And 8, 9 months, I have to try and find out, well, what was the error that I made back in March, and I'm in December? A lot of inaccurate information is going in. And people just continue to quit. The bleeding doesn't quit. And I can tell you, if I lose, and we'll find out, I can live with it either way. If I lose, you'll lose another 50 people. He's going to do another layoff, another outsourcing is coming up, and then you have another group of people just quit.
Wow. What do you want to leave this audience with? If they're looking for information on Scott Ellis, what do they need to do?
You can go to the website, www.ellisforclerk.com. You've also got a $16,000 little document done by Mitch Needleman called the Annual Report. It will tell you how horrible Scott Ellis was when he was there. And more money
What's that got to do with the annual report?
It doesn't. But more money was spent on this report than I've spent on my entire campaign from day number 1 collecting signatures.
Just right time of year for an annual report to be released from that office?
No, and it's actually been mailed out on clerk's money, too. They've mailed it to a number of people on the clerk's nickel. It was printed on the clerk's nickel. Again, the whole office has been mobilized for the campaign.
Scott Ellis, thank you much. Appreciate your time, and thanks to you for being with us. Keyword video at WMMBAM.com. We're back with more political interviews as we move forward through the general election season. Thanks for being here.